Hi there guys, yes I am back with another video. Can you believe it? I can. I love making these videos. Okay, so the video that we're going on to today is actually question 1.2 from the November 2024 paper, all right? It is there in the thumbnail of the YouTube, but you'll see now the question that we are dealing with, okay? It is a simultaneous question. So I'm going to be working through this question and writing down the rules so that you can understand how you need to work through it. Okay, so what they have asked of us was to solve for x and y simultaneously. That means you need to make one of the variables the subject of the equation. Okay, so like x equals or y equals. So, like I said, that's step one is going to be to make one of them the subject of the equation. And the easiest one to do this from would be from equation 1, because as you can see, I can already isolate that 1 being by itself, that y. All right. So to get y alone, I would have to take the 2x to the other side. And in order to do that, I need to make it a negative. All right. So that would become my first equation. Your second equation is the one that you've made no changes to. So I always just say dot dot 1 and dot dot 2 so that they know my thought process. Now your next step is to sub that equation 1 into equation 2. The reason why we do this is to try and get rid of that second variable so that we only have one variable to solve for at a time. But please be very careful. You always sub it into the other formula. You can't sub it into your own formula. All right. So you would then state that wherever you see y, you now have to fill in minus 2x plus 3. So remember, whenever you sub in, ensure that it is in brackets, okay? Because sometimes there'll be a negative, and if you don't have brackets, the negative only affects the first term, not all the other terms within the brackets, all right? Plus x minus 2x plus 3 is equal to 2. Now, do you see I've gotten rid of all of these y's, and now I only have x's, which means I can then solve for just the x. Okay, now what I would recommend is that you separate these into two separate brackets. If you don't need to do that, that is perfectly fine. But under exam stress and conditions, sometimes you guys just like to FOIL in that too, which is incorrect. Okay, you can't tell me it's 4x squared plus 9, because then you're completely missing the middle term. So that's why I always say rather write out the brackets and then do the foiling. All right, plus, and now that would become a negative 2x squared plus 3x is equal to 2. For anyone who's confused on what I had just done, all I did was I FOILed in or distributed in the x. So that would be x times negative 2x, which is negative 2x squared. And then x times 3, which gives you a positive 3x. And I just wrote down equal to 2 because that was the rest of the equation. All right, now let's do our foiling. So I would then have 4x squared plus, and that would then become a negative, and remember this would then become negative 2x times 3, which gives us 6x, minus again, so negative 12x, plus 9, and then I just write the rest of the equation as is, and because I can see that there's an x squared, I'm going to bring over that 2 and make it equal to 0. Because remember, whenever you have an x squared, you bring everything over to one side and you make it equal to 0. All right, now our next step is just to group our like terms. So you can highlight them or you can underline them, whatever is easiest for you. All right, you would then be left with 2x squared. That would become minus 9x plus 7 equals 0. You can use mode 5.3 on your calculator. For those who don't have the smart calculator, the 991 calculator, you can most definitely try the trinomial method or the T method. I do have a video about that, so you're more than welcome to go watch that. So otherwise you just use mode 5-3. It does save you some time. And you would get that your brackets would have been 2x minus 7, x minus 1 is equal to 0. Therefore, your x is either 7 over 2 or x is equal to 1. But remember, they didn't ask you to just solve for x. They said solve for x and y simultaneous. So what you're going to do is we were working with equation 2, right? Don't ever sub it back into the equation you were working in. You're going to sub it back into the other equation, which states y is equal to, because we are trying to solve for y. So if I have to sub it in there, I would get that y is equal to, and then we're just going to sub it into the equation. So that would be negative 2, 7 over 2 plus 3, or that y is equal to negative 2, 1 plus 3. And if we then solve for y, you'd get that y is negative 4 when x is 7 over 2, or you'd get that y is equal to 1 when x is equal to 1. Okay, so that is how you would complete a simultaneous. What I would also recommend is writing them underneath the x value that they correspond with. Please don't just write it randomly, because you guys don't like to write down your subbing in step. Then your teacher doesn't know which y goes with which x. So just ensure that you write them underneath each other so that they know which one corresponds with which. Okay, so just to recap, when you do a simultaneous, what you're going to do is try and make one of them the subject of the equation. So I chose y, because if I chose x, I would have had to divide everything by 2 to get x alone. So that just makes math very complicated. So I chose y, so I made y the subject of the equation. Then you sub that into the equation that you haven't touched, that you didn't manipulate. You then find either the x or y, and then you sub that back into the first equation that you did manipulate. And then remember, just ensure that you write them underneath one another so that it just shows it more cohesively and what corresponds with what. Okay, I do hope that you found this video helpful. Please do like and subscribe for more content.